So the good news is that there's not an enormous amount of work to do to give it This is an electric tram bogie from the Isle of Man. There's a pair of them come for overhaul. They need new wheel sets, so we've got new wheel castings being machined in the workshop. We've got to make new axles and sort out repairs to the rest of the bogies. So this will create a float set. It'll go back to the Isle of Man and then be swapped into a tram, and then hopefully those bogies will come to us for a similar overhaul. So yeah, we've only just really started this, and part of the job is to develop the drawings that are available for this bogie type. There's a reasonable set of drawings, but they need checking through and refining, because the drawings have a roller bearing conversion on the axle boxes. But we don't need to do that on this bogie or subsequent ones, because the plain bearings have been found to be satisfactory when they're properly sealed. So that's a job that's just getting going now. These are the new wheel castings for the Isle of Man tram. They've been free issued to us. They're steel castings, and we've part machined them at the moment, but they'll be bored out to suit the new axle that we're going to design and make. So we're getting on with the job, and yeah, it's good work for us. So this is the Merthin Emrys's boiler. The overhaul is advancing. We've removed all the tubes, had the boiler inspector in, and he's had a good look at it. And so the good news is that there's not an enormous amount of work to do to give it another 10-year ticket. We're doing some restaying in critical areas, like the corner of the firebox here. We're changing these 3 stays. So the next step will be to ream the holes and then re-thread them with new threads. We've got hopefully some stays. New stays will be on order, slightly bigger threads than the ones that are in at the moment. So those will be, the holes will be tapped through both in the outer plate and the inner plate at the same time. We've got a long tap which goes through both, through the outer plate, through the water leg and through the inner plate, so that the thread will be in pitch. So we can screw the new stay, usually from the outside, screw it right through into position, and then it'll be corked and seal welded around the outside and on the equivalent place on the inner firebox. We don't have any big new patches or big welding jobs to do on this boiler this time, so that's good. The fireboxes they're getting thinner than they were. They've wasted a bit, but not too badly, so they can go for another 10 years. We've changed all the studs, and there's some work to do on the gland assembly for the regulators that goes here. But basically the boiler's not in too bad a condition, and it should be back in service later this year, so that's good news. As you can see at the moment, it's sat in its cradle, but the cradles have been, each end of the cradle has been moved apart to give access whilst keeping the whole thing mobile. So it's a very handy feature of the double fairly cradle frames of this type, which are basically 3 plates down each side and 1 across the middle, which obviously isn't there at the moment, and the fireboxes normally sit on in the middle. The replacement superheater flues, these 2 big ones and the small tubes, they've all arrived, and so as the boiler inspector's seen it, and he's happy with the boiler, so these holes have been reamed. You can see where there's been little nicks that have been welded up, and then the surface is quite smooth now because that's had a reamer passed through it. So we can put the new pair of flues in, and we can put the small tubes in. So they'll be expanded in at both ends and then seal welded just at the firebox end as well. That's our favourite method of securing the tubes. And then the superheater header can go back on. Sits on these studs here, and then basically the rest of the locomotive can then start to go together around it once it's had a hydraulic test, once all the tubes are in and the new stays are in and so on. Right, here are the Merthin Emrys's water tanks and bunkers. So this is the driver's side tank assembly. As you can see, it's a one-piece tank right through. So it's got a lifting prop in the middle, so it can be picked up and put on the loco in one piece. So here's the vacuum pipe, which runs through the water space. Here's where the reach rods from the reverser go. So the reverser would stand here and be operated like this. The driver stood on the well tank here, and the reach rods come through here to a pin joint down to the way shaft on the boiler cradle. Obviously the fireman's side tanks and bunkers are on the other side. You can see the coal bunkers. So these tanks don't need a lot of work before they're ready to go back on the loco. So they're stored in the shed at the moment, dry and out of the weather. You can see inside there's a bit of scale and corrosion gone on, but not too bad. So we added these hatches to the design when they were first made, and that makes access into the tank much better for cleaning and doing any repairs. So this is a balance pipe assembly that runs across the loco. So this will bolt up on one side, and then this will bolt up on the other side. And say it runs across the loco side to side, so that when you fill the tank on one side, you're filling the tank on the other side as well. These are Mae'r Emrys's power bogies. Again, they're stored in here at the moment. We don't think they need a huge amount of work before these can go back under the loco and go back into service. We'll probably be doing just some checking and so on, but I don't think they need a major overhaul before the loco's back into service. This is the Mountaineer alcove boiler that's it's had the welding work done at the back, so all the major repairs to the boiler are now done. And what's happening here with this air drill is that the small tube holes are being reamed. So that's basically taking a small amount of metal out of the hole after the holes have been welded up where they've been nicked from cutting the old tubes out. So they've got to be got back to round, and putting a reamer through the holes basically cleans the hole up, makes sure it's completely circular. So we've got this air drill to do that, and I'm sure Robco will be back to make some more noise with this shortly. This is the start of the new boiler for the 19B Darjeeling engine. So this is the outer firebox, the throat plate. You can see here where there's a weld prep being put on the edge of the plate, and you can see here this weld prep that's ready. So the plates have been carefully lined up. The foundation ring has been carefully fitted and then taken out again, so we know that the foundation ring will go into this outer firebox. And these plates have been beveled, prepped, and the gaps carefully measured, and it's been tacked. So this is the stage that the boiler inspector will want to come and see it. So you'll want to see this in this state before any welding goes on. You can see the measurement bit of welding rod stuck in there that gives the correct gap for the weld procedure of the root. So all these tack-ups will be done before the boiler inspector comes in for his first inspection. So obviously there's another weld ready for him to see here. Here's the boiler barrel edge has been prepped, so one of the next stages is that the barrel and the throat plate will be put together and tacked round with the gap at the root, so that the boiler inspector will be able to see that. And then down here you see the dome tube and the flange. They've been readied for welding in a fillet weld around here. This is the foundation ring, which will finally be riveted into place, but we need to check obviously that it fits, which has been done. So it's been into the outer firebox assembly and it's been around the outside of the inner firebox assembly, which is here. You can see the weld prep is ready here, ready for the boiler inspector to look at, and then hopefully he'll be happy with it. And I don't see why it shouldn't be, because it looks beautifully accurate to me. And then Bob will be welding all these after the boiler inspector's gone and past that stage of the work. Right, this is Winifred's boiler. It's Bala Lakes Quarry Hunslet loco. We've removed the copper firebox by obviously drilling out all the rivets and drilling through the copper stays and then cutting them off very carefully, because we're going to reuse this copper firebox, which is in quite good condition. It's not really wasted or cracked anywhere. It's a bit covered in scale at the moment, but it's not in bad order. So you can see here the threads where the stays have been screwed in. There's the remains of a stay in that hole there. Anyway, these will be retapped and we'll have to make new copper stays to suit. And obviously the holes on the outer firebox wrapper, you can see the thread there, not particularly good, so we'll be going up a size. So these will be reamed out and then retapped with new threads right through into the inner firebox as well. Obviously the fire roll ring will be re-riveted in, but we've got some repairs to do on the outer firebox first. There's some bits of plate work in here that need building up and welding, but now we've got the inner firebox out, it's relatively easy to access and the repairs can be carried out. And then once the boiler inspector's happy with the outer, we can start putting the firebox back in. So quite a big job, but we're getting on with it at a reasonable pace. So yeah, hopefully later this year this boiler will be back together. Right, this is the now shortened chassis of a standard gauge PMV van for the Hull and Barnsley carriage number 1. We've shortened it in 2 places, one here, you can see this weld and these rivets. So we took 2'6" out of this point here, and we took another 2'6" out of this point here, bringing the whole vehicle 5 foot shorter, which matches the original body, and indeed puts the wheels in the right place for to match the body. So that's the shortening's done. As I say, behind here there's a plate that's riveted over the weld, so it's a belt and braces type of shortening. And the members in the middle, they were relatively easy to shorten. They were cut, and then they've been cut one end off and then bolted back to the angle plate into the chassis there. So the wheels have been examined for profile, and they're a very good match for the BR P1 wheel profile. The springs, the leaf springs, which would be sitting on top of the axle boxes here and running between these hangers, they're away at a contractor's being modified, so they're having the number of leaves reduced to reduce the stiffness of the spring, because the vehicle overall is going to be a lot lighter than it was. So we're waiting for those to come back. And then on top, on the pallets, you can see various bits and pieces that have been away at the shop blasters. The buffers, the buffer springs, the draw gear, the breakaway shaft, various other bits and pieces. So they've all been blasted and painted, ready to go back on the chassis. So we're waiting for the springs at the moment, and we're waiting for some other bits and pieces, and then the chassis can be considered finished, and we'll be waiting for the body, which is in the carriage works at the moment.